Hello, and welcome to another fully live Q&A episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinzie. I am a security researcher at Varonis, and today I'm going to take your hopefully hacker-related questions and answer them as best I can, while also talking a little bit about beginner PCB design, as it's something I'm doing for the Hackaday SuperCon simple add-on contest. Good to see everybody in the chat today. Hello, CM and a cat. Hopefully we get some of our regulars on as well. And we are back in HD. So you might notice that before we were streaming in extremely downgraded quality. Looks like we're back. So excited that we got that fixed because I looked like a potato on the last couple of streams. All right, so already got some interesting stuff to talk about. And, you know, this stream is also supposed to be talking about like hacker tools. So I wanted to throw in something that I found that I would describe as a little unsettling. So let's see, I think on Twitter, I was going to save this for the Q&A stream, but I think that this is definitely worth talking about. Let me get this on here. There we go. All right, so this being reported from 404 Media, this is combining a number of things that I've already kind of reported on before in order to make facial recognition glasses. Now, this is building on Meta's new smart glasses to use the camera to basically take a photo, send it to a facial recognition website, use that service to identify the person and find various websites they've been listed in, and then use an LLM to crawl those websites, pull information, and do additional searches to find information about that person. So imagine, you know, you're walking around, somebody glances at you with these glasses and, you know, they surreptitiously take a picture. Within a couple of seconds, it might actually be possible for them to know your phone number, where you live, your name, like other information about you, which obviously is a little bit unsettling. So scrolling down a little bit just and showing off kind of how this actually works. It was noted by Meta in their response that you could technically do this on any phone. So that, like, of course, it could be done on any camera. It could be done on any phone. But the point here is that this camera is connected. It's wearable. And it's also kind of disguised. So the fact that it's difficult to tell that someone's taking your picture and they could be like pulling up information about you potentially is kind of the concern here. Hello, Funky Monk. Good to see you on the chat. Yeah, so if you haven't seen the story, I think it's definitely worth checking out. And really one of that's the key here is PIM-eyes. Sorry. So when I've done OSINT investigation stuff before, I've talked about PIM-eyes as a service that is maybe a little bit unethical. So I consider it to be one of those gray areas that's like kind of a racket, because what they do is they make it really easy for anybody to upload a face and then search for instances of that face. Now, obviously, they kind of represent themselves as the business that makes it so that you can find photos of yourself from across the internet and request for them to take them down. They don't, as far as I know, really do much to actually like take the photos down from other third-party websites. You have to go and do that, but they will remove them from their own search, so making it harder for other people to find them. So kind of like making it known that it's possible to search for a face and then like charging people to see full results or like delete them from the search. That is kind of a weird business model, in my opinion, because it obviously encourages some unethical behavior. And I've definitely found that it is easily abused. As an OSINT tool, it's really valuable. And I've covered it in a couple of like demonstrative investigations where I'll use like a picture of a famous picture, and I'll use a couple tools to like either geolocate it or find out who that person is. This is the sketchier of them, and they've gotten into trouble a number of times. They're based, I think they were based in Eastern Europe for a while, and now I think the company's registered out of like some random island. So if you haven't heard of PIM-eyes, it's kind of what's crazy behind the story, because the two pieces of the story I think are interesting are, for one, it's a hidden like a data connected camera that somebody could take your picture with and you wouldn't really know. And second, like there's this service on the back end that's able to take that camera or take that camera image and then process it in a way that finds examples of that face and then feed it to a large language model that can follow up on it and gather more data. So definitely a novel approach here, something that I don't know if I'm super comfortable with. And if there aren't any laws against just like taking a person's photo in private, like surreptitiously, like with the camera like that, that's not obvious, and then like processing it, I feel like there will be shortly as people start to feel like this sort of thing could be more common or something they would need to worry about. So I was surprised to see this. I think like obviously there should be some privacy guardrails on how these like take pictures when they are so surreptitious, and they can be combined on the back end with all sorts of analytics and data processing. One thing that I might note is also like Meta could also totally do this. So anything that goes through their servers, it's totally possible for them to do the same sort of processing, like identify people in photos, start grouping people together, sell that information to advertisers. There's like limitless potential here. And what's interesting is this is being done by just random people stitching things together. Imagine what like Meta could do with like the same footage, or what's already being done with other types of footage coming from like Ring doorbells or things like that. So yeah, just something to think about. A lot of things can be done now when data is processed on live imagery. And the more integrated these cameras get into our lives, included into smart glasses, the more it could be that the person sitting across from you is actually looking up your home address while you're just sitting there minding your own business. Makes me want to go back to wearing masks. All right, so this is also just like a story I wanted to mention because it's not exactly news, but it got everybody on Twitter very riled up. There was a founder who was announcing how excited they were to quit their high-paying job to start a AI startup that had got $1 million in funding. And somebody made them aware that they had actually forked an open source repository in a way that went against the license of that original repository. And the license that they were currently using did not make sense. It was something that was ChatGPT generated. So this was an AI startup. I guess it's not completely surprising that they would use ChatGPT to craft their terms of service. But in response to a user who pointed out that this was not something that was permissible, the response, which was, "Dog, I ChatGPT the license. Anyone is free to use our app for free for whatever they want. If there's a problem with the license, just let me know. I'll change it. We are busy building right now. Can't be bothered with legal." That did not go over well. And they ended up posting an apology a couple of days later, saying that they should have taken it more seriously and trying to show some transparency for the fact that, yes, they had, in fact, forked an existing open source project. But a lot of people who are in the like AI and legal space were flabbergasted by this response, especially by someone who had apparently received $1 million in VC funding. So yeah, if you use ChatGPT to write your license, or if you poorly understand the open source project that you're forking, that can be a big problem if you start to take on money and start bragging about how much money you just got in funding on Twitter. So bit of a discussion about this as to whether or not ChatGPT is up for writing software licenses. I think that the answer, at least for right now, is definitely still no. And then this was kind of exciting. I was quoted in the Telegraph, why women are going to extreme lengths to make their hotel room safe. And no, the answer is not me. I was the expert being quoted here. So talking about hidden cameras was what this article was about. And you know, there was some really good, genuine advice here for like how to look for them and all sorts of other things. But I think most of this applied to hotel rooms. I wanted to talk a little bit more about like Airbnbs and other spaces that are less controlled and how you would catch a camera. And this is cool. They shouted out securityfwd. I think that's awesome. And I got to talk about electronics. And I actually, in my response to the reporter, I talked about how like cheap electronics had gotten. I gave them some examples of like specific cameras and stuff, but that's okay. They did not cover that. They instead talked about kind of the high level stuff of like what types of devices could be very, very cheaply modified or purchased in a version that has a hidden camera. So alarm clocks, lamps, wall plug, anything with a wall plug. Sorry. Anything that plugs in immediately gets a little bit more scrutiny than something that would need to be changed out occasionally, like something that would require like a battery. But of course, I also pay attention to the Wi-Fi environment. So doing a scan to see if there's any IoT devices around me that I don't recognize or anything on the Wi-Fi network that I don't recognize is going to be something that I look for just generally because that's what I tend to poke around and look for. So I'm not sure if that's right for everybody, but at least for me, I found it to be useful to look at the Wi-Fi environment and see if there's anything that just doesn't make sense. Especially if like you're provided with a Wi-Fi password for the network at an Airbnb, if you're able to scan around a little bit and maybe discover like something's connected to the network that you didn't anticipate, like, well, maybe that's worth investigating. And by signal strength, it's relatively easy to track those things down. All right. Hello, Taekwon Gong. It's good to see everyone. And James, it's good to see you as well. I'm using Gemini to read terms of service for me. I think that for like reading terms of service, it's probably fine, but I don't know for writing terms of service. Okay, so let's talk about PCBs. And also let me clear my throat really quick. Okay, so let's talk about printed circuit boards. So my friend Andrew, aka Make It Hackin, came on the stream at one of our events, and he was talking about some of the advanced art that he has worked on recently. And I want to shout this out as like my major inspiration for even attempting to do this project. I don't know if I'm gonna even finish this. You know, like at this point, like I'm in the middle of like the fifth to last step in getting this actually done. So there's still a lot of stuff going on. But I really like this design. It inspired me to try and make something myself. And I want to share a little bit about like what that process has been like and what it's like to make a circuit board. Now, I can't say what it's like to make a working or finished circuit board, but I can say what it's like to have made one about as far as I've gone. All right, so what I want to show off on this example I have up on the screen is the backwards mounted LEDs. Now, this is something that, is not typical. Usually when you have an LED, you're going to be putting it on the front of something. So having it backwards mounted is a little unusual. It's something that you don't see all the time and is not as common as I expected. So for actually mounting something like this, it turns out that you can't just expect there's going to be a part that works. Instead, if you want to like make a PCB that's 100% going to work, you should first look at the parts that are available and then make some selections based on what you can actually purchase. Oh, okay. I also have a question. What's the appropriate roadmap to venture into cybersecurity from beginning to expert? Well, I'll get to that. Let me finish with this first, but that is a long question. Kody, are you too sick? Yes, I have a little bit of a sore throat. Mostly, I just have nothing but coffee around me. So if I had like a little bit of water, I'd probably be fine. But everything I'm choking down right now is just like further dairy and coffee, and it's like not helping. Anyway, so back to PCB design. So if you're thinking of making something, and I want to show off my early concepts for this, my very first drawing of what I wanted to do was this thing I have up on the screen. This was just an early design with the purple mark showing off where the PCB mounted LEDs were going to be, and then like kind of a general layout for what I wanted this cat to look like, for like a tarot kind of thing. Now the general design could change, but basically it was going to be these lit up panels in the background with kind of a cat in the front. So after I thought about this for a little bit, I realized that it's super annoying actually to have LEDs just pointing towards you. I'm going to try to turn this one on. Oh yeah, and if we switch back to my screen, you can see that I have a PCB that has LEDs mounted directly on it, and they're super bright. They're kind of unpleasant to look at. You can see they're kind of like blowing out the camera. So for creating like a beautiful PCB design that's easy to look at and nice, like this is very, very harsh on the eyes. Plenty of power, but definitely not something that you want to stare at for very long. So when I was thinking about my design, what I decided to do was make it so that these LEDs were actually on the back of the PCB. Now, I was inspired to do this by Make It Hackin's designs because that's exactly what he does here. And on the front of the PCB, it ends up creating this tricorder that has all these like beeps and boops and things lighting up that are shining through the PCB. So this side of the PCB is completely flat. All the light is shining through it. So this is kind of the display side of the PCB. And then the other side is the functional side of the PCB that has all of the components that are required. So I thought this was super cool. I wanted to find out, like, could I make something that uses these exact same parts? And the answer was absolutely not. So my little design here that I wanted to do, and this was my AI version of it that I dressed up a little bit for just kind of slapping on the PCB, has all these segments that would need to be lit up from the other side. And that's great, except these components do not exist in a NeoPixel fashion. And if you remember from my little demo last week, I was showing off how each time I detect a packet, I can create a color for that packet and then display it on the pixel. So I basically am showing off all 12 channels of Wi-Fi and visualizing incoming packets by pulsing a light in the color of whatever type of packet it is. So if it's an attack packet, it's going to be like a red one. If it's like a access point that's trying to join a network, it's going to be a green one. So I wanted to make it so that all of these LEDs can be changed so that their color can change from red to green to blue. And none of these will work. They are all a single color. So I needed to start looking around and find something that would actually work for this. So I found this. Now on Make It Hacken's designs, he has these side-mounted LEDs, which actually have a little window cut here and then still glow through. And they do waste a fair amount of light by kind of like bleeding over the top. But it's okay. You can use like a little spot of hot glue or other things to make it diffuse a little bit more, and they still work. So by finding a side-mounted NeoPixel, I was at the first step of my journey here because my circuit is actually very simple. And this is what it looks like. It's mounted on its side. It can change into whatever color I want, and it was perfect for my design. So while I would have probably preferred an LED that was completely flipped upside down, the only ones that do that actually have to have a hole cut in the PCB for them to lay flat. You're not able to just put them facing downwards. So I was actually pretty surprised that there weren't any LEDs that were specifically made for like this kind of PCB art. But now that I realize it, it is kind of a niche thing. So these side-mounted LEDs were what I decided to use. The price on these was a little crazy. It definitely was a little bit more than I was wanting to pay for these LEDs. So instead, I managed to look them up on LCSC. And I found them for pretty cheap. They're like less than $1. I think that the pricing comes out to 10 cents each, which I can easily do. So all right, so I managed to find these, but how do I actually make a circuit with them? Well, that's where it's really cool. If you're a beginner who's trying to make a relatively simple circuit and you identify a component that you want to work with, what you basically need is all the measurements to put this in a schematic and then actually make a PCB based on it. Now, there's a number of different tools you can use for making your own PCB. A lot of people recommend KiCad, and I think that it is great, but a little overwhelming to learn for the first time, especially when you need to make custom footprints for everything, or it can be a little bit harder to import footprints. So I got really lucky, and both the microcontroller and this new side-mounted NeoPixel that I want to use are available as footprints on Easy EDA. You can see that this company, LCSC, actually has an Easy EDA model available for this. And what's cool is that it has the schematic symbol already created. It has the footprint for the PCB already created that's the right size and properly marked. All of that is outstanding. It means that I can basically get started making a printed circuit board with these components, and I don't need to build my own footprints. So I want to show off what I did. So I basically, if you click on free trial, it'll open this up in Easy EDA. And I went ahead and I followed a YouTube tutorial on how to make my first schematic. And I want to show off how it looks. So this also may not be right. I, again, just followed a random tutorial. This is something that is my very, very first schematic on here that I'm going to be setting off to production anyway. And the idea here is that I was able to take this footprint right here, the product that I want to use, this side-mounted NeoPixel, and I was able to drop a bunch of them, the number that I want to actually have here, and then chain them together. So in the schematic, we have the input here and then the output here for each one, and they are chained together in a chain. And then I have my microcontroller I'm working with right here. Now, I actually wasn't able to find the exact one that I want to work with, but I found one that has almost the exact same footprint, and at least all the pins that are important are the same. So I'm just using one that is similar enough that I can get away with it here. But this is kind of the end result. I had them all chained together with power, ground, and data running down the center. And then when I convert this into a printed circuit board, let's see if I can do that here. Here we go. Then I have all of them arranged here physically with all their pads and all the wiring and stuff. And I can then arrange them however I want so that I can make a circuit board that has all the components on it. And after that, I can do like rules checks and make sure that everything's being followed. But this is how I would take some components that I found on LCSC that I want to use and then start chaining them together and then convert them into a PCB and start laying them out. So here, for example, if I want to move this, you can see the wires are all here and I can start routing them later. I'm not going to route them quite yet, but if I want to place this here and this here, I can start laying things out. And then I can also create a circuit board of basically whatever size I want as well, and then start dropping these on the board. So here I have a board outline. If I want to do one, let's just say I'll start here and end here just for fun. All right, now I have a board outline and I can take this. Oops, no, I don't want to make a second board outline. No, I can take this and then I can start moving it into the board and start moving these components around. So I've also got access to all of the layers of the board. I can start messing with the silkscreen layer if I want to add art. I can control where the solder mask is and isn't. This is kind of the beginning of the whole process of starting to work with everything, but selecting your components, creating a footprint or importing footprints into a schematic and wiring them together and then converting that to a PCB is going to be like the very, very first steps of this process. And after I get this laid out in a way that I like, then I'm going to actually route the board. And the last step for me is also going to be making sure that all the silk screen art looks the way I want it to, and that I have cutouts necessary to let these LEDs shine through the board. So my technique here is going to be just using a relatively simple string of LEDs controlled by a Wi-Fi connected microcontroller to create this really cool like clock effect and show off these packets as they're coming in. So I need to create cutouts to make sure that there's no silk screen applied and that the light can shine straight through the board and that it looks nice on the other side. So that's what I'm going to be working on for the rest of my free time this week. It is my my entry to the simple add-on contest for Hackaday SuperCon. Whether or not it gets done in time, we'll see. But I'm going to try to get some test boards out within the next week. So we'll see exactly how that goes. Anyway, if you are making your own PCB or if you have any ideas for me to try, please let me know in the chat. I am a beginner at this. And while I have overseen the creation of many circuit boards, I have not actually put one out for production myself. So this is going to be really fun. Okay. All right. Let me jump into the chat because I'm sure a lot of stuff has happened while I've been off talking about this. Oh, and also thank you. Yes, I'm really enjoying learning about how to appropriately like select parts and throw them together. I realized that there's a lot of planning that goes into a circuit board. And first off is just deciding like what you want it to look like in the very end. And then after that, it's kind of making compromises based on what available parts are out there and just making sure you're being really detail oriented when it comes down to like making sure the footprint is completely accurate for what you're working with and testing it if at all possible. All right, let's see. What is worth it to buy for Christmas? HackerOff one with PortaPack, Raspberry Pi 5. Let me think. So I think right now, some things that are worth buying for Christmas. I've been buying some of the like LilyGo T Echoes. Those are really nice Meshtastic nodes that have a lot of capabilities, and they also run some interesting other firmware that's able to like scan for airplanes and do some other cool stuff. So that's definitely worth checking out. Those, you can also find them for relatively cheap. And I've also found some other Meshtastic nodes for literally like $12 on AliExpress, which I'm going to be testing out soon. So finding like, you know, like really, really cheap Meshtastic nodes for like interesting and throwaway applications, I also think might be fun for people that are interested on radio side of stuff. I think that HackRF is definitely worth buying. I think that they're expensive though. So, you know, it's definitely a commitment. The Raspberry Pi 5 I have enjoyed working with so far. We've been using them as demos for when we go to conferences. Like we'll have the Raspberry Pi 5 hooked up as like the computer that you can hack, and it's fast enough and has enough input output and active cooling that we're able to push it and do some cool stuff. So yeah, I would say the Raspberry Pi 5 is good. What else? So I've been into like a lot of LoRa stuff. I've been also, yeah, like I would say like for radio stuff in general, like the HackRF is something that is worth buying, but frankly, like anything over like $250 like is kind of a hard sell for me. So I've been mostly focusing on, I was like, for that, I could get like, you know, like a ThinkPad, like a nice used ThinkPad or something. So I'll think on that one a little bit more. I would say some of the updates to Flipper Zero also are making them increasingly useful. I've been trying out kind of giving mine some more life because now that it has some updates and it's faster with keycard cracking, it's become much more interesting to me. I want to see what kinds of keycards it could potentially crack. So I would say the Flipper Zero and associated accessories are definitely back in the ring as well. The prices are generally pretty stable. There was a while where it was like super hard to get them. So getting in relatively early before the holiday season is probably a good idea to make sure that, you know, everything is available when you want to buy it. Let's see. Let's see. Reduce the BOM because you don't need a diffuser. Awesome. Yeah, no, I'm really inspired by a lot of the PCB art that I've seen out there, especially Make It Hacken has just done some really cool things with such like simple components. Like I'm really inspired to see how a little bit of like art and non-traditional design can really, really influence the look and feel of a board and make it so that, you know, that sometimes the manufacturers get confused because they're like, why are you trying to do this? This is not standard. This is like maybe not great for reliability. And it's like, no, this is an art project. Like, you know, you have to understand like there's also this part of the industry that's more focused on aesthetics than like ruggedness or like, you know, doing everything exactly the way it's supposed to be by the book. But definitely there's some times when like the Chinese manufacturers are just like so confused about what you're trying to pull off here. It's kind of funny. That's hilarious, the cat pentagram thing. Yeah, I was really inspired by some cool tarot cards, that I traded for, like cool, like cat tarot card stickers. So I wanted to do something kind of like that. You know, I'm not totally married to the design. I think it's cool. And I think that's going to be what I do for the final SuperCon thing. But if I need to just push out something really simple to test out these components and make sure that everything works as I expect, then I might end up doing something just kind of like goofy and simple. Let's see. All right, so let me get back to this question because I think it's a good one. What's the most appropriate roadmap to venture into cybersecurity from beginning to expert? So that completely depends how you want to spend your day. Do you want to spend your day doing research? Do you want to spend your day tracking down like incidents? Like there's so many different ways this could end for you. It really just depends on how you would like to do it. So like public-private sector is also like a really big decision. Like there's a lot of great roles in both. Obviously, there's a bit more money in the private sector, but you know, a lot of people do want to go into the public sector in order to do a lot of good. So it really does depend what you're interested in. I would say personally, if you want to gain the skills to have a lot of choices in cybersecurity, then making sure you have a decent networking background. Computer science, I really thought was going to be the primary thing, but networking ended up being something that I found to be a lot more useful. Making sure that you're participating in like the culture and events around like cybersecurity and ethical hacking. So hacker culture has a lot of hacker spaces and classes and events and other things that will expose you to people who have experience in things that you're interested in but are not skilled at yet. It's really important to get those contacts and understand who to go to in order to learn more about something that you might be, you know, a total beginner at now. Because nobody is going to be able to be good at everything in this field. Like it's going to be a matter of what clicks with you and how you want to spend your time. So my advice is like build your network of contacts of people who are like either teaching or involved in the culture or going to conferences and presenting. Like if you have good access to experts and other people that show you career paths that you might be interested in yourself, you'll be able to narrow down your options to the ones that you're really strongly interested in and the ones that feel right for you. So keep your options open. Take a path that allows you to see many different types of cybersecurity careers so you can decide which one really aligns with you. And if you have the opportunity to engage with hacker culture, do it. You'll get to see what kinds of people seem relaxed and enjoying their jobs, what kind of people seem stressed out and like they're not enjoying their jobs, and maybe you can steer your career towards the ones that are a bit more relaxed, or whatever feels right for you. So it's such a highly individualized question. It really depends on like what kinds of things don't feel like work for you. For example, for me, doing the stream doesn't really feel like work for me. Like I enjoy doing it. If nobody was paying me to do this, I would probably be doing some form of it anyway. And like diving into new technologies, summarizing it, or creating a proof of concept to the point that I can explain it to another person. That's what's really exciting to me and what I enjoy doing. So I tend to spend most of my time doing those things, because other things like responding to SOC alerts, writing new programs, or working on hardware are maybe not something that my ADD brain has as fun of a time working on. So obviously, if you're a more detailed oriented person, if you are somebody who likes to focus on something and really dig into it, become like a true expert on that subject, then there's lots of different specific areas in cybersecurity you could spend your whole life in. But I would just encourage people to kind of move around within the field as much as you can, or at least like talk to people who have different roles, because everybody's idea of cybersecurity is different. From the people in the NSA to the people that are making goofy marketing content for cybersecurity companies. It's all kind of depending, like, how do you want to spend your day? What kinds of things feel easy for you? Or what kinds of things do you like to do and won't burn out on? Because I feel like there's a lot of burnout in cybersecurity, especially when there's so much pressure to get things right, to be technically perfect, to be technically accurate all the time. The technology is constantly changing, and it makes it really difficult for people to stay up to date without like just getting really like specific in one field. So even like being like myself, like I consider myself to be like a Wi-Fi security expert, because I know enough about most of the underlying Wi-Fi security mechanisms to know how to attack them. But in some of the new methods of Wi-Fi security, I'm still catching up on the feature sets and other things that are something that I know a lot about. So I constantly feel like a beginner in a lot of these fields, and it requires a lot of time and energy to go to conferences and talk to new people to stay up to date with it. So yeah, just, like I would say, focus on the things that feel natural to you and try not to spend too much time in the areas that foster burnout, because there's plenty of depth you can get into on any of these topics that will prevent it from feeling too stale. All right, that was a very long answer. Let's see. Yes. Want to know the correct move to avoid wastage of time. Yeah. So I would say, like, again, like you are going to excel at the fields that you are interested in and that feel, if not easy, at least not like difficult for you. So focus on those. Like I would say there's enough room in cybersecurity for a lot of people to be able to like find things that they truly resonate with. And there's also a lot of like jobs that are not fun and that a lot of people probably do not enjoy and probably get burned out on. And because that's a problem, like that would be my one point of caution, would be like, there are easy paths into cybersecurity that are just jobs that are really difficult for some people. So if you get that feeling, then don't feel like cybersecurity as a whole isn't for you. Just realize that sometimes it's not a great fit, and the field as a whole is huge and has a lot of different opportunities. LilyGo is killing it too. Yeah, I have to say, I love their hardware. They've made a lot of really cool stuff lately. And just seeing all the different options for like wireless communication, the tight integration with microcontrollers that are really popular, that I work with in other fields. Like I've been excited to see all the stuff they've been coming out with. Let's see. Wish I knew about DC groups before I left LA, because there is DC 818 there. But I found a new group out here in Texas. Yeah, DEF CON groups are definitely something that you can look out for in most major cities. I know that there's one in Los Angeles that's like constantly trying to meet in like a Denny's. And every time I see it, like or maybe it's an IHOP, I don't remember. But every time I see their messages, like they're already like most of the way through and about to pay the bill. So I keep missing them. But yeah, there are definitely some DEF CON groups out there. So if you're somebody who's trying to get into cybersecurity or just into like hacker culture in general, then check out DEF CON groups, because there are a lot of them out there. And some of them, again, could just be operating in your city, meeting in random coffee shops and Denny's, and you might not even know about it. Yeah, so here's a perspective. You are going to waste time, but it doesn't mean you won't learn anything. Yeah, I would say if you go into a part of cybersecurity that teaches you a lot but isn't right for you, it wasn't a waste of time. You learned everything that you learned in that section you learn that you don't want to do it anymore, and you understand the job of people who work in that role now. And that has a lot of like opportunities and applications, and like helps you in, you know, other roles in cybersecurity too. So I would just caution against feeling like a role that isn't a perfect fit is a waste of time. It's generally not. Like, unless you learned like absolutely nothing and it was pure torture, like most of the time, like seemingly unrelated jobs or jobs that are a waste of time end up being helpful in all sorts of unexpected ways. Working as a bouncer at a nightclub allowed me to understand how to talk to people and ask questions and tell when people are lying. So for cybersecurity, learning about, I don't know, social engineering and all these other tactics is like, no, I already know that. Like, I already know how to do that. And also just being comfortable talking to people when necessary. When you have to take like 1,000 people's IDs in line over the course of like 3 hours and have to talk to every single one of them, listen to jokes, make conversation, you learn how to deal with it. So, you know, even jobs that don't feel related in the moment, like, and feel like you might have been wasting your time, like they'll come back to help you in the future and give you an advantage in other roles where people might not have had as much experience or a background in things that are non-traditional for that type of job. What do I think about this? Using optical logic gates to make a powerful brute forcing tool. I mean, I'm excited about anything that would speed up the process of brute forcing. Optical logic gates sound certainly like an interesting way of going about it. If you know of any projects or anything that has documented that, I would love to see it, because that sounds like I've never heard of that actually. You would be surprised what experiences can be useful. Yeah, honestly, yeah. Like, for example, I mentioned like I was a bouncer at a front door, and like I'm very good at spotting fake IDs. And there was a time that my friend and I were going to purchase a vehicle, and we were like almost all the way through the process. And the dude who's selling the car, like I asked for their ID, they kind of hesitate and they hand it to me, and instantly I knew it was fake. And because I called out like 100 people on having fake IDs before, it was like nothing to me to be like, buddy, this is fake. Like, what's going on here? Like, you know, this, and he's, no, it's not fake. It's like, no, it's sharp where it shouldn't be. There's no bear here. Like, you know, I hold it up. There's like nothing there. There's supposed to be something there. Like, this is fake, you know? So I prevented myself from potentially getting into like a deeper situation that I didn't want to be in, knowing that someone was presenting like a fake ID. Like, it ended up being really useful. And, you know, sometimes in my job also, I find that a lot of these things come back to help me dealing with fraud or dealing with people who are lying, or like looking out for somebody who's like causing a problem. Like it's just something that's like built in now. So you would be surprised what kinds of experiences end up coming back to help you out when you're doing different jobs. So again, just don't consider those to be wasted. Consider them to be unrelated training that could come back to help you in the future. All right, so we've got like 9 minutes or so for additional questions, but let me see if I have some other stuff to present. I had a couple of things pulled up. I was mostly excited though about getting these PCBs started, because it's been a while of trying to get them up and running, and I found that KiCad and some other stuff was not as easy as I expected. Oh, I remember what I wanted to show. So we also came out with a bunch of videos this week. So this was some cutouts from our previous videos that I thought were worth showing off. And in this case, I wasn't really aware of how many layers of cybercrime exist around phone theft. I thought that it was just like people steal phones and then they're either useful or they're not. But actually, there was a 3-tiered layer of phone thieves, unlockers, and then the developers and administrators running the necessary online infrastructure to unlock stolen phones. We released a cutout video on this last night, and then today we released a cutout on the FTC calling out social media companies on basically pretending that children and teens do not exist on their platforms. So the same kind of invasive advertising and tracking that is lobbied towards adults has also been indiscriminately used on people who are under 18 and even younger. Kids, teenagers, all have been targeted by this sort of invasive tracking. And that information is then sold on to advertisers to create super invasive profiles of these people, sometimes before they are even adults. Now, there's no real laws against this when the companies just put up a terms of service that says that kids aren't supposed to be on there, but then don't enforce it in any way, shape, or form. So yeah, just I was surprised to see this. Just released this video on talking a little bit more about it, but expect more cutouts this week, including one talking about the research that we were covering last week, where our security team was able to find information from public Salesforce leaks that they weren't supposed to by brute forcing it character by character. So we've been talking about cloud security, and this was one that I thought was an incredibly interesting story. I think it's going live tomorrow, so stay tuned for it on the Security Forward channel. Just a truly interesting read on how a little misconfiguration and some determination using something like Burp Suite can cause data scraping to be completely possible, totally unprotected against, and allow for a lot of confidential information to be scraped. So yeah. All right. So yeah, I think that's most of the time we have today. I want to, per always, give a big shout out to Varonis and everyone there for supporting the stream, letting us do this every week. And if you want to support the stream too, you can always go to varonis.com/Kody. That's Kody. It lets everyone here at Varonis know that you like the stream, you want us to keep going live twice a week, every week, and we certainly appreciate when you do. All right. So also, as I mentioned, I'm going to be going to Hackaday SuperCon. That is going to be November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. I am attempting to enter the SAO contest. So if you're going to be going to the conference, please let me know. I would love to see some of you there. I don't think I might be doing a lightning talk, but I don't think I'm going to be doing anything too crazy, except maybe organizing an event over at Null Space Labs as I usually do. So yeah, hopefully I'll see some of you there. It's been cool to see some people at this from the stream at a number of other conferences this year. So if I saw you this year, then I certainly appreciate that. It's not just on the stream we get to hang out. We also get to hang out at some conferences too. All right, everyone, that's going to be it this time. If I missed your question, or if you're watching this on repeat and you want to make sure I answer your question next time, make sure to drop it on the YouTube channel. I go through and make sure to take the best questions and weave them into the stream. And if you've got any news for me to cover, you can do it on the Discord server or on the YouTube channel. James has been amazing about sending me just like articles to cover and other things that I might otherwise miss. So you can always find the Discord server. I think the easiest way is if you go to nugget.dev, nugget.dev. I think that's the best direct link right now. We were using nugget.lol, but somebody kept using it to send spam because I didn't set up the email protection services on it. So I just gave up. I just don't want to use that one anymore. But anyway, certainly appreciate it if you have any interesting news to share, and we're going to be covering that on Friday. All right, everyone, I will see you guys later. Thank you for hanging out with us on the stream, and have a good one, everyone. Goodbye.